This is the Liaison Podcast with Izzy Park, and today's travel show is about experiencing Tokyo's enchanting winter season beneath the glow of neon lights and endless possibility. Picture this. 3,000 people cross a single intersection at the exact same moment. Not chaos, choreography. Everyone knows exactly where they're going. Nobody bumps into anyone, and when the light changes, the street fills with cars like water rushing into a vacuum. 60 seconds later, it happens again. And again. All day, all night, this beautiful, organised madness, surrounded by buildings wrapped in video screens 8 stories tall, each one screaming for attention in a visual language that hasn't been invented anywhere else yet. Tokyo in winter is the city at its most honest. The summer humidity that normally softens everything burns off, and what you get instead is this crystalline clarity. Skies so sharp and blue they almost hurt to look at. The light in winter does something magical here. It catches the modern glass towers and the ancient temple roofs in the same frame, and suddenly you understand how a city can be 900 years old and 9 minutes into the future simultaneously. Mount Fuji appears on the horizon like a ghost, visible maybe 1 day in 3 during other seasons. But in winter? On clear days, she's just there, floating above the skyline, reminding you that all this concrete and neon sits on an island of volcanoes and earthquakes, that everything here was built knowing it might not last, which maybe explains why Tokyo keeps rebuilding itself into something more interesting. The cold brings out different food, different rituals, different versions of the city. Hot pot restaurants fill with people huddled around bubbling broths, strangers becoming friends over shared heat. The bathhouse culture that's been here for centuries suddenly makes perfect sense when you're soaking in water so hot it turns your skin pink, surrounded by murals of Mount Fuji, while snow might be falling outside. And the crowds. Listen, Tokyo is never empty, but winter thins things out just enough that you can actually breathe in Harajuku, that you might get a seat on the train, that temple visits feel meditative rather than like queuing for a theme park ride. This is where Japanese culture becomes 3-dimensional. You've grown up with pieces of it. Maybe you played Nintendo games or watched Studio Ghibli films, or read manga until your eyes crossed. Tokyo is where you discover those weren't just entertainment, they were documentaries. That sense of whimsy mixed with precision, of technology serving beauty rather than just efficiency, of taking the smallest things incredibly seriously. It's not exaggerated for export, it's just how things are here. A convenience store clerk will wrap your chocolate bar with the focused intensity of someone performing surgery. A train conductor will point at each signal and announce what he's seeing out loud, even though he's alone in the cabin, because precision matters more than looking silly. The city runs on these tiny acts of care, multiplied by millions. More after our break.
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners, Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
Here's what nobody tells you about Tokyo. It's one of the safest major cities on Earth, which means freedom. You can wander at 3 a.m. through neighborhoods you've never seen before, and the biggest danger is that you'll get lost and have to figure out which of the 5 identical convenience stores has the best fried chicken. Solo travelers discover this quickly. The city that looks intimidating from outside becomes liberating from inside. You can be anonymous here in ways impossible in smaller places, can reinvent yourself daily, can spend an entire afternoon in a bookstore without anyone bothering you, can eat alone at a counter without feeling lonely, because counterculture is real culture here. The neighborhoods operate like separate cities. Shibuya is where youth culture happens first, fashion that won't make sense to anyone over 30, music venues and basements you'd walk past without noticing, tiny bars that seat 7 people maximum, where everyone's dressed like they're attending Fashion Week. Harajuku does whimsy and weird. On Sundays, Takeshita Street fills with people dressed in Lolita fashion, in cosplay, in styles that don't have names yet because they were invented last week. But walk 10 minutes to Meiji Shrine, and you're in ancient forest, standing in front of massive torii gates, watching priests in white robes perform ceremonies that predate the city itself. Shinjuku is controlled chaos, the world's busiest train station where 3 million people pass through daily, surrounded by skyscrapers and department stores, and the neon fever dream of Kabukicho, where every building seems to be screaming in light. But duck into the tiny bars of Golden Gai, a warren of 200 establishments that seat maybe 5 people each, and you're in intimate spaces, where the bartender remembers your name after one visit, where conversations happen in whispered English and broken Japanese, and mostly just shared smiles. Asakusa gives you Edo period Tokyo, the city before it became Tokyo. Senso-ji Temple, built 1300 years ago, sits at the end of a shopping street that's barely changed in a century. The massive red lantern at the Thunder Gates appears in every Tokyo postcard ever made, and it's still breathtaking in person, because some things earn their fame honestly. Come for New Year's, and you'll stand among millions doing their first shrine visit of the year, buying fortunes tied to tree branches, eating street food that's been made the same way for generations. Then there's Akihabara, which is what happens when otaku culture gets an entire neighborhood. 8-story buildings selling nothing but anime figures, maid cafes where servers in frilly costumes call you master and draw hearts on your latte. More after our break.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
The experience of moving through Tokyo itself becomes addictive. The trains run with supernatural punctuality. If the schedule says 7:43, it arrives at 7:43. And if it's late by 2 minutes, the conductor will apologize. You get a fare card, and suddenly the entire city opens up, because the train system, which looks like spaghetti thrown at a map, actually makes perfect sense once you surrender to it. Those crush-hour trains you've heard about? They're real, and they're an experience. Station attendants literally push people into cars to make them fit. But it's also strangely civilized. Nobody talks, nobody pushes back. Everyone just accepts this temporary intimacy with strangers and maintains psychological distance through silence. Walking Tokyo is its own reward. The city reveals itself in layers. A tiny shrine squeezed between office buildings, maintained by someone who leaves fresh flowers daily. A vending machine selling hot corn soup, because of course that exists. A shop that sells only one thing, handmade brushes, or vintage kimono, or the perfect kitchen knife that costs more than your plane ticket and is somehow worth it. The city rewards obsession, celebrates mastery, values the person who spent 40 years perfecting one specific thing. I hope you have enjoyed our trip together. You can support the Liaison podcast by rating it 5 stars and pressing the follow button. Remember, traveling is not about finding yourself. It's about remembering who you've been all along.
Grab news. Tamez.